let me introduce myself before Haysing will introduce herself, and that we then go into today's topic. Myself, I'm a C-suite performance coach focusing on women. My mission is to get more corporate women into the C-suite and beyond. So that's from my side. Haysing, please go ahead.
I'm Haysing Han, and I am certified in the same high performance coaching curriculum as Catherine. I'm also corporate turned coach. In my mid-career, I just realized I was climbing the wrong ladder. But looking back, everything I've done prepared me to be a coach for corporate women. And I want to make sure that women there, it's a great job, a corporate gig making six figures, don't get me wrong, but there are things that thinking about it, looking back, now things are crystal clear. I'm not in the trenches, and I wanted to make sure that I set up corporate women for success.
Excellent. And I think you hit something very important, which is also valid for me. I left corporate to do my dissertation, and it is my legacy to help women also to get into the corporate world under that term. And I think that Haysing and I, we're focusing on unleashing the power of women and for them to know that they can achieve a career also under their terms. So, Haysing, today we are going to talk about
overcoming the performance trap.
Okay, so let's go. Do you want to present the matrix?
Talked about this casually, and I was actually sharing with Catherine my own I wouldn't say it's a career limiting move, but at the time I felt like that's what situation I was in. And then Catherine, you mentioned that, hey, it sounds like you're in what McKinsey would call performance trap. And a lot of women fall into that.
And it is about here. Most of us know this matrix. Whenever leadership reviews the talent within the company, at least once to twice a year, employees about their potential and their performance. And what is interesting is to be in the bluish zone. However, though, there's one square where it is not good to be at all. You should always be somewhere here. And maybe also a potential gem, but try not to be here. And why is it? It is just simply because you are regarded as a contributor, and that's it. You're generating some revenue, you have highly satisfied clients, you are really a solid performer. However, though, this leads to the performance trap. It is quite interesting that most of us women, at one point in time, we are facing to be squeezed into that. And I became really aware of that when reading Sally Helgenson and Marshall Goldsmith's book, How Women Rise. They said that men are assessed for their potential when women are assessed for their contribution. I thought this was a blind spot of mine, because even though I was highly focused on helping women to evolve, I didn't see it. Maybe Haysing, you want to also share your point of view?
Yes, I believe that a lot of, this model in and of itself is really important, but there are many women, even in middle management, in large corporations, unless you have a team to manage, you're not exposed to this HR calibration model. And every company has something similar to this, but it becomes very clear. And, even one of the banks that I used to work at, like, even if you're not really middle or junior executive, if you manage team, you are exposed to this and you're part of the calibration, what we call team calibration process. So you become a little more aware of that. But there you could be 20 some years of experience in large corporation making really decent money and feeling really good, and you consider yourself as high performer, and that's your identity, but you may not be blind to any of these discussion that's going on. So what happens in a corporation is, a lot of times twice a year, sometimes once a year, depending on the company, this goes on behind the scene, and you have no idea in what bucket you're placed. And it might be very different from your self-identity. And a lot of women in mid-career, in their early to mid-40s, when you're realizing, some of the things that I used to hear in my 20s, that the role you occupy around the time, by the time, you reach 40 and is the role you're going to retire in. That's the kind of thing I heard in my 20s, and I had no idea what they meant by that. But in corporation, especially for women, there is ageism. There is this glass ceiling that everybody feels. And then, they started seeing that, oh, somebody who's younger than me, not necessarily age, we're in a similar talent and I am more experienced, but you see that happening time and time again. So you hear women in late 30s and early mid 40s start talking about, I'm being passed over and I feel disrespected. I feel unheard. And that is a signal for you, whether you admit it or not, whether you're aware or not, you're becoming solid performer. You're not high performer. You describe yourself as high performer, but you're no longer high performer, high potential in the minds of people who are going to push you forward.
Absolutely. And what you're saying, I would even argue that when you start a new role, a new responsibility, or you're leading a new project, it's good to be here, to see that you deliver, grow, to blossom in it. That is fine, but you should be always looking at how can I become again a potential, a gem, something where, or a talent that leadership feels attracted to, especially when you lead a complex new project, a new leadership role. You are considered automatically as a gem that you should be aware of, not to drop into this area, because you are going to be considered as a contributor. And it is not because your leadership is not appreciating the work that you're doing. It is an easy path for your leadership. Catherine is doing the work. She's good at it. She's performing. She brings the revenues, the numbers. Clients are happy. This is also happening in consulting business. I mean, how many consultants, and my background is the consultancy world, how many of us women and high performing contributors have felt at one point in time being really squeezed in a trap where they could no more, or felt that they could no more get out of it because they were relying on their manager, direct manager, to advance within the firm. Myself, also as a senior leader, when was it, 15, 20 years ago? I started as a gem. I cleaned up a situation. I made it very profitable. We had raving fans. I had a fantastic team. We were expanding in Europe. Inadvertently, I went into here. Was a high performer and solid performer. And this cost me my job, because when you are here, you are commoditizing yourself. You're no more delivering a value which is considered as something new. You are no more sitting in the driver's seat of your career. You're in a job and you're executing.
Yeah, I mean, it happens at all levels of your career. It happens to C-suite level. It happens at a junior level. It gets a little more difficult as you get more experience, because whether you want to admit it or not, you kind of build a little bit of sense of entitlement over time. And so people are less willing to take risks and put themselves in a situation of growth. And I forgot this gentleman's name, is a Harvard professor, and he talked about S-curve. It's always trying to put yourself in the position of discomfort and growth, because if you can't actually do things with your eyes closed, and that's the time that you feel restless if you're a high performer, and if you're always looking for something else, and why am I have them all, and why do I feel restless? So if I give some audience, the listener, my own personal experience, when I joined the company, I joined because this is one company that had a very clear vision and mission statement. It has to do with always getting better. And it's like you're never going to be the best, but you're always going to be better. And it talks about excellence and legendary experience and all that. It just captured my heart. And I felt like my value is aligned to this company. So I joined. And because of that, I stayed there longer than I would have. Like all my career, I stayed in a role for a couple of years. And then I'm like, I want to stay in this company, but there's no option for me to grow. And I often had really great understanding managers is like, Haysing, you're right. What you're looking for, we cannot give it to you. And so with their support, I was able to move on to a different role. But this one company I joined as, I was pretty sure I was joining as high potential and high performer because I joined because I was exhausted in another company and I wanted a team back because I was like one person Wonder Woman and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to create greater impact. So I joined, I had a team, and the VP of my team was very generous and very nice. He said, don't ever stay in this role for more than 18 months top because you can do this very comfortably. We brought you in because we need your skill set, but you should not be here for more than 18 months. I did not know what that meant. Then I was assigned to a enterprise-wide, like C-suite mandated project. And you don't know when you're in corporation and you're just starting out and you thought it was 1 year project. It turns into 2 years and it turns into 3 years. And over time, they're trying to transform at every step of the way. So it became like 4 or 5 year project before I knew it. And a lot of women, my colleagues always say, hey, I have this strategy and transformative project and I'm leading and it is my baby. And I have my team, I have my partners, internal and external, they rely on me and they have this sense of ownership and I have to see to an end. I have to make sure this is successful. It's my baby. This is the word that women use. And I'm thinking like, okay, so if it's a large project, it could take years at a time. And most women stay and you're missing out on an opportunity to grow. And when I was managing this project, as it morphed into a multi-year project, all my partners in different lines of business who are men at certain milestone, they took it they leveraged that to move on to the next level. They were okay with, hey, my contribution with this one project was done. Now I'm called upon a different project I know very little about, but I'm okay because I'm going to figure it out. Whereas women is like, yeah, I can go that way, but I'm only 50% done. I really want to make sure this is successful. And they believe if it becomes successful and you let it and you're guaranteed for promotion, which is absolutely not the case.
And it is a perfection trap, an excellent trap, the two. That comes also from our education with women. If we need to be perfect and showable all the time.
Presentable.
Presentable, and it transfers in everything we do because we start being control freaks. This is really a trap where we can no more escape sometimes because we feel very comfortable there. We manage things, we know how to sort things out, we get a satisfaction out of it. What you shared with us is exactly the same. I had also my baby, my team, the recognition we were getting from clients, and still you are commoditizing yourself. So yes. How can we get out of this trap? What would you suggest?
So I literally went from high potential, high performer to solid performer. And over time, that's when I literally just lost myself. And I felt like there was such a big gap between my self-identity, future identity versus how I felt like people were perceiving me as, which probably has some of my biases, but probably bang on at the time because I wasn't going anywhere. And even if you have a network of sponsors internally, what happens in corporation, and especially because of COVID, and there is a hot job market now, but it could change in a second. And if you have a network of sponsors and you're not broadening that network. So you talked about external network is opportunity network, internal network is something that you really nurture. Both of them have to go on simultaneously because you don't become one company wonder. Don't get sucked into that, and don't feel satisfied because you're needed and everybody sees you as somebody in one company, because you have to develop your professional brand that would stand the test of time. That I didn't know how to do it. Nobody told me how to do it. And when I felt like I had a strong network of sponsors, like Haysing, yeah, she's a high performer. There's no way she's gonna be considered regarded as solid performer during performance calibration,
Mhm.
those people all retire for whatever reason, especially that the company is going through a massive reorganization. And you know how, top of the C-suite level person leaves, that their team somehow gradually disappear.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden you're in a position that, like I'm in this company for 4 or 5 years and all my sponsors gone.
Mhm.
And you're like, what do I do? What do I do? So always, and then I heard this comment from a colleague of mine. She came from consulting, and then now she's in a different spot. She's like, I don't understand why I have such a hard time building my network of sponsors. It was not difficult at all. Sometimes if you come from management consulting to corporation, and management consulting is project based, so if you're a solid performer and you're relatively junior, you get pulled into different projects, and then people rave about what an amazing performer and a solid person you are. So of course it's easy to build sponsors. I come from research consulting. It was easier because it's project based. If you go to corporation, you're reporting to like hierarchical, like one manager and then that person's manager. So you have like 3 levels that you need to manage, your direct boss and 2 levels up. And if your manager, no matter how nice she or he is, if that person goes from high performer, high potential to solid performer, it happens very quickly. And that person's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Then no matter how nice your boss is, you're not going anywhere. That person's not going to promote you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So let's stay at the network level. Research is showing that men tend to create opportunity networks. They go outside, they chit chat, they share experiences, and they are way more opportunity driven than we women are. Women tend to stay with their peers, create a peer network within corporations. And that is also a trap. The other thing is, it is also a trap to become a project manager. This is one thing we should all know. It is very good because it exposes you to many facets of companies, you get to know people, but you should use these connections. So it is about you creating a solid stakeholder framework or network where you become visible, where you talk also about your achievements, not only the one of your teams, but also your achievements, how you have been able to see the risks, your proposal to mitigate the risks. This type of visibility or promoting the results you were able to drive is something which is going to appeal to many people or senior executives. See what you can share so that everyone within the company can benefit from the work which has been delivered. The other thing is use this talent matrix or grid for you to assess yourself where you are. Right. And what you said also, Haysing, is really important, because once you slide down to the solid performer, it is time for you to move on. Speak at least once a year with your manager. Talk about your aspirations, your intention, because corporations and HR expect from their employees that the employees have a good view of what their career should look like. Whenever you have a project lasting longer than 2 years, manifests approximately about after 2 years that you want to move on. And so don't wait until you're perfect, because we will never be perfect. And you said also earlier something about excellence, you feeling attracted to this vision statement. I think that excellence is no more valid unless there's efficiency gains to make, revenue increases, so the more traditional side. Now, not only with COVID, but us rethinking business models, strategies, and innovation and disruption, it is more about culture of progress. And I think that this is something we ought to learn and feel comfortable with it, even if we fail. And it sounds really hard, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great point. And I think I'm sure there are a lot of leaders who have team, like small and medium, large size, would listen to this episode. And one of the things that I would like to appeal to the leaders is most companies, consulting, government, corporation, what have you, they try to hire people who have solution all like down to pass, right? Because they want to hire somebody who's going to come in and perform like a solid performer and star from day one. And you see these things on LinkedIn, how frustrated young people who graduate from top university and entry level job, you said 2 years of experience, where do I get that? But it's at all levels. It's whether it's medium level, senior level, like don't try to hire somebody who knows everything, because how would you expect that person to be engaged year from now and 2 years from now? Because there's no way. So they have a wish list of top 10 things that are must, but nobody ever have all 10 things mastered by the time they get hired. And you mentioned in the past that men, out of 10 things, they scan the job description, and job descriptions are not very well done to begin with. So I mean, I was, as a hiring manager, I spent a lot of time on job descriptions because I wanted to make sure that people understand what I'm looking for. But my peers, they just copy and paste. And do you have any JD? And they just copy and paste. That's not even relevant to the role.
Right.
So don't give too much weight on job descriptions, and try to think about what they're looking for and do some research around hiring manager and company's vision and mandate and mission, because you can figure out what they're looking for at this moment as opposed to just what the job descriptions tell you. And if you have like 30 to 40% of things that you feel confident you can do it, then you should apply for that job. Don't make sure you check off 8, 9 out of 10 things, especially my female colleagues, because then you might as well just have your own business. Why do you work for other people? If you know 9 out of 10 things that you can ace that from day one. So that's something kind of funny thing. And you mentioned something about let your aspiration known. I did let my aspiration known, but when there was an influx of never-ending new executives coming in, and I was in a position to, you're in a position where you have to brief new executives coming in, and then you're the one who has all the history. And that's the telltale sign that you're not going anywhere, because Haysing knows everything. And you get to actually brief them, but don't feel like, okay, that's a dangerous sign. And the other thing, if you were to talk to your manager like at least once a year, but I would recommend quarterly basis. And it's not what you say to them, it's also how you say to them. And so a lot of women, me included, when I said, hey, I want to get to the next level, and then sometimes I hear things like this. This came from like vice president or SVP. I felt I was ready. And then I would hear things like, yeah, but I see you there in 2 years. And I'm thinking, I don't think I could be there for 2 years, but I was intimidated. I didn't really ask her, okay, 2 years, but I want to make it in 6 months or 1 year. What are the things that you see that I don't have? And a lot of women are intimidated and don't ask that question, but it's how you ask it, because how would I know? What are the things that you don't see in me that I need to go to the next level? And if she is straightforward enough to explain that to you, then the next question should be, how would I know that I'm closing the gap? And how would you know that I'm closing the gap? Otherwise, you're just getting frustrated because you don't know what to do and how you know that you're actually making tangible progress.
You highlighted some very important points. The first thing is, if you have your direct manager saying that, okay, maybe I see you there in 2 years. The fact that you're talking very specifically and addressing the topic with your direct manager, and also with HR, by the way, is just say that you want to have a raise and explain why you want to have that, what you have contributed, where you see yourself, how you can close the gap. Believe me, men have no problems talking to you about their desire to get paid more. And it has one positive consequence for the employee. You, as a leader, you put them on top of your list of people to get a higher pay. Well, men do that every single year. They show up and say, okay, Catherine, I've delivered that. I think, I think I could be getting a little bit more. So that is one thing. The second thing is Mercer does a study every year of how women thrive. The very interesting thing is when you have on a job specification 10 criteria, women will try to show up if they have 12 or 13 points, so meaning even more than asked, they don't feel really secure and comfortable to show up and ask for the job. Men, on the opposite, can have only 3, 4 of these points in the job description made, and they show up and they say, okay, I'm here, I can do here, boom, boom, boom. And they feel so confident that they are rising immediately as a high potential. When we show up with 12 items, okay, I can do that, and maybe I can even do this, we are moving into the performer side. And this is the difference where we should be looking at. The other thing is, if you're a project manager and you have you're working for a senior executive, the thing is because of your know-how is that you can become almost the personal assistant of the senior executive and have a say in all the different projects. Usually what is happening because of your history, you get linked to functions. And at some point in time, it is about offshoring. You get pushed towards not the business, but towards the offshoring, the global functions, and etc. When you have, and this was really important, when you have a senior executive or C-suite change, if you are the history keeper of the company, don't try to prove that you have this history. Look at the people who are now in charge of the company and see if they are creators, innovators, disruptors, killers of the business. And when I say killers, I mean splitting the company in several pieces to be resold to someone else, depending on the assignment they got from the board. Look and get a feeling and then adjust your know-how so that it suits what their assignment is. And this is going to put you in a different spot, not in a performer spot, but in a potential spot.
Yeah, I just came up with because we talked about this many times, and I hope this is okay with my client. One of my clients recently got promoted 2 levels, and I worked with her for more than a year. And she was high performer, got into the same route of like falling down to the solid performer place, and then had a sort of meltdown that this is not who I am. So she made a career change, and she deliberately took a step down just to make sure she just start and then give herself some space and grace to recover. And amazing company, her leaders are supportive and everything, and she didn't have a strong enough team, so she got into the trap of doing execution mode that you said, project manager execution mode. And we started talking about it, and she was like doing it and got really frustrated. And it's like, hey, and she got to the point that I said, well, you know what, this is probably not what I want, and doubting herself. And I said, start thinking about who you're going to leverage. It's about who, not how. We all fall into the trap of executing and how I should do it. And so women, the reason why we look at, we have to check off like 13 out of 10, and including the one that's not even specified, because you start thinking about how I'm going to do it. How am I going to do it in an amazingly, in control from day one? And like, no. You have to focus on what you're strong in. And then day one, first 30 days, what you need to do is scan your environment and see who has a right skill set that you don't have, that they're going to be partnering with you to make a success out of whatever you're leading. So it's all about who, not how. And so it goes with your mention of don't get trapped in this performance, perfection, and excellence trap, because we don't know we're doing that, but it is all about who, not how. And men are very good at that. And they don't get, I mean, I'm not saying all men are like that, but most men who know how to play this game, as you mentioned in different episodes, like I used to think game in a kind of negative way. So it's like, what do you mean game? Like, it's my career. It's not a game, but it is a game. It's just like you grow every year, and it's a long game, and you get to decide what kind of game you're going to play. And you like it's a game of chess or what have you. So all these people, like if you just focus on a project and you just focus on one piece. However, if you look at broader perspective, and then people around you, and how are you going to really elevate them to make sure that what you're leading is going to be a success, then they see you as a partner. That's a sure sign of leadership. And that puts you on the map of potential, because it doesn't matter what role I put Catherine in, she knows how to bring people together to make it happen. So I don't care she knows it all, because she knows how to find people, she knows how to problem solve, she knows how to innovate, she knows how to elevate other people up. Whereas the position I inadvertently put myself in was like, I didn't even know I was doing it, but I was so concerned about everybody in that project doing the right thing and doing it well. So that's something that I think everybody should think about.
Yeah. And I would even go a little bit further. With the game, men are way better. It is a quick game. Who is climbing the quickest on the ladder? And it has one positive side. They are not getting emotionally tied up into what they're doing.
Right.
And if you want to really move forward, and I've always practiced this, it is when you start a new position, you already think about your succession plan. When I started at Mercer in Germany, within 10 days, I had my potential 4 successors. When I got nominated or got the role of CEO at Mercer in Switzerland, I looked for my successor almost 2.5 years until I found him. And the day when I decided to step down, I could at least offer him as a candidate. My senior leadership looked for their own candidates. However, though, he got hired. So it puts you in a position where you're ready also to climb yourself, or do whatever you want to do, stay within the firm or leave the firm, but you are emotionally, you have another way of being involved with your work. That helps tremendously, and which makes us less vulnerable whenever there is a seat change of whatever nature, in whatever position. And please never entirely tie your career to your direct manager. You don't know if this person is going to be there in 3 or 4 months. Always look at your stakeholders within the company, make yourself visible, and talk about your achievements. And don't wait to be tapped on your shoulder.
Yes, that word, it's
you're the great.
Widely used, tap on your shoulder, and then you don't get tapped on, and then you're wondering what the heck is going on. So I also, not because you're not a coach, but it is critical that you have your own career path mapped out. And that changes because you don't know everything. So if Catherine, you talked about cultural progress, and you today is not going to be the same you 6 months from now and 12 months from now. If it's the same person and your needs and aspirations haven't changed much, that you're in trouble. So assuming that you're constantly trying to grow and aspire to be something bigger than your own self, and most people join large consulting firm or large corporation for that reason. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And especially high achieving, high performing people are willing to work more than 7.5 hours on your contract, and you're doing 12 hours longer and you're okay with it. And because you really feel strongly about the project and then the impact it has on employees, your colleagues, and customers, what have you. Having said that, you have to have your own career path. Sometimes it doesn't happen very clearly, and looking at your career path with your own manager inside the company alone is a big mistake, because as you said, like no matter how amazing your manager is, you're not married to that person. And if you are aspiring for something bigger, chances are you're going to outgrow that person. And if you have a great manager, he and she will recognize that.
Yes.
And if his and her path is not like climbing the corporate ladder and you're better than they are, like I've heard so many times C-suite ladies are saying my boss was secure and smart and clear about what he wanted, what she wanted. They didn't mind putting me in front of them when it was necessary. But that doesn't happen very often. That happens to very lucky few people.
Mm-hmm.
So have your own career plan and path and review that with somebody who's not inside your company. And that's a check and balance. You do it with your manager, what have you, and you are trying to align to the corporate mandate, but they don't own you. So you have your own path. You work it with your coach or whoever, mentor, whoever it is. You have to have external, internal validation, and it has to feel right to you. And you have to review that on an ongoing basis because it changes. Sometimes women in their 40s, they think career was everything. They have teenage daughter and they start thinking about, I want to broaden my impact. I'm not just going straight up. I want to do board work. I want to do school volunteer work. I want to join this. So the legacy impact we start thinking about around mid-career has very different faces depending on who that is. So I'm saying I wish I knew that. I thought I knew where I was going. But if somebody asked me, did you have a clear career path and career plan that mapped out next 12 months? No, I didn't.
If for whatever reason you are coming to this conclusion, it means that you're sitting in the passenger seat of your career, and whomever is sitting on the driver's seat is bringing you to where they want to go. So it is always good to claim back your career and not your job. Never put your job before a career. Always think about what is important to you. What do you aspire for? How do you want to grow? What do you want to experience in the world? And a career is never a straight line.
Jungle gym was, as Sheryl Sandberg said, it's a jungle gym. Yeah.
So let's explore all that in later episodes. We've given to you enough food for thought.
Yeah.
We'll see each other then again in 2 weeks' time on a Friday.
Yep. I would love to get some feedback. When we went live, we had a couple of male allies who were giving us a lot of good feedback. And I know that some of you wanted to join live, so I'm really sorry that it didn't work out. So we'll figure that one out.
Absolutely. So we'll see each other soon and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.